What is up guys, it is Ross and welcome back to another Mario Kart Wii Limitless Vehicle Showcase and Developer Commentary. This is actually the penultimate episode and we will be having a look at the Quacker today. The Quacker, very much a fountain of memes in the Mario Kart Wii Limitless community because this thing actually used to be in the first ever public build of Mario Kart Wii Limitless. This thing was extremely overpowered, it was the best vehicle in the game, and it was also like the easiest vehicle in the game to use, to the point that people dreaded going up against it, and it gained the, at the time, derisive, but in hindsight, hilarious, moniker of him. So everyone in the community just kind of refers to Quacker as him, just as a shorthand for Quacker. But yeah, not overpowered at all. We at the Mario Kart Wii Limitless community, and by we I very much mean I will take full responsibility for that blunder, have learned from the mistakes of the past, and now Quacker is an honest and hard-working 9-to-5 McDonald's worker, just like all of the other vehicles in Mario Kart Wii Limitless. God, I love plotting these silly little narratives in my head for all of the Mario Kart Wii Limitless vehicles. God, where was I? But yes, Quacker, as you can probably surmise, Quacker has extremely long mini-turbo. And that's pretty much the main draw of the vehicle. It's an inside drift turbo vehicle. It's actually the only inside drift turbo vehicle. And the reason for that is, obviously, with the shooting star, you know, a lot of people back in the rebalance days really liked the idea of an outside drifting mini turbo vehicle. And they really wanted that to apply to the shooting star specifically. So Quacker kept the inside drift niche, because Quacker, in the context of Limitless, Quacker always had this niche. It was always the inside drifting min-maxed mini turbo demon. Obviously, to go along with this expertise in mini turbos, its top speed is dreadful. It is one of the slowest vehicles in the game, maybe the slowest vehicle in the game. I can't quite remember the bike speed rankings off the top of my head. But regardless of how fast or slow it is, or what its stats are, even though its stats are pretty impressive, Quacker being a turbo vehicle with inside drift does 100% give it a place on any Limitless player's mind. If such a gameplay combination interests you, Quacker is very much your vehicle. All the other vehicles that Quacker shares an archetype with, they all have outside drift, so you're not going to find that with them. And having inside drift does have its strengths and weaknesses on this particular type of vehicle. It means that on turns, you can charge your mini turbos way more naturally, and in a thick pack, it's way easier to defend yourself, because you only have one tier of drift to worry about because you're a bike, right? And also, it's easier to protect yourself with items because you aren't swinging outward and making yourself a giant target in the same way that Sprinter? What the fuck am I talking about, Sprinter? I suppose that was the last vehicle commentary and I'm recording these in batches, so very much thinking about other vehicles when I'm talking, but it's not making itself... Quacker isn't making itself a giant target in the same way that Shooting Star is with its giant hitbox, or Sugar Scoot is with its less than gifted drift stat, shall we say. And wide drift angle, can't forget about the wide drift angle. The downside to Quacker having inside drift is that, unlike Shooting Star and Sugar Scoot, chaining its mini turbos can actually be a little bit tricky for it if it's not currently on a turn. You kind of have to go out of your way to commit to a mini turbo chain in a way that those two bikes don't have to, since they can just use outside drifting, outwards momentum, as it were, to correct themselves. Quacker can't really do that. It has to do very awkward shenanigans like this. to get the ball rolling, and oftentimes that can be very risky. Like, if you're up against a heavyweight, like if your starting position is right beside a heavyweight, like God forbid you start beside the Piranha Prowler, you're gonna be in for a rude awakening if you think that getting the initial mini turbo is going to be easy. Just because Quacker is a simple vehicle doesn't necessarily mean that it has the easiest time in a lot of instances. Speaking of instances, I guess I should talk about Quacker's other stats as well. Its acceleration, fitting for the Quacker, is honestly pretty good. It is not as high as it is in vanilla because it's a turbo vehicle, so obviously it has emphasis on front running. Having such a vehicle with such a good acceleration stat would be pretty beppis, as we say in Limitless. It actually did used to have egregious acceleration, and that's part of why Quacker was such a demon in earlier updates. But yeah, its acceleration, you know, at lower thresholds it's abysmal, but at mid to high thresholds it is pretty excellent, so you do have about a second you have to suffer through, but once that second passes, you're off to the races. It's somewhat undermined by the fact that Quacker is so reliant on mini turbos, which means if you get hit by something, you will have to sit and charge a mini turbo again, which obviously takes an additional second or two to charge, depending on where you are. So even though you wouldn't think it, Quacker is actually deceptively easy to combo compared to other lightweights, because when it gets hit by an attack, even though its acceleration is passable, you do have to suffer its low speed, like its dreadful speed. Like, how fast does this thing go when it's not a mini turbo? 78. Yeah, that's pretty dreadful, 78 km/h. In the context of Limitless, like the slowest kart goes like 84. And I think the slowest non-mini turbo bike goes like 82, I think, off the top of my head. I might be wrong, I might be joshing a little bit. You develop so much of these stats that it's pretty hard to keep track of which ones are which. So yeah, its acceleration is decent, its weight is abysmal. Quacker is the lightest vehicle in Mario Kart Wii, and that fact remains in Mario Kart Wii Limitless. Its drift is pretty solid though, so, which perfectly complements its status as the inside drifting variant of the mini turbo vehicles. And its off-road is pretty lame, but in the right circumstances, you can use its mini turbo to show that up. And hopefully I will be able to show that off in this very conveniently randomized track that I just got. On shorter shortcuts like that, Quacker can use its mini turbos to brute force them, but the fact that Quacker's actual off-road stat is abysmal means that it is very much a sitting duck as it does so. And yes, the pun was intentional. Fight me about it. Which can obviously make it very risky to do if there are heavyweights, medium weights, lightweights, or even other Quackers right behind you, because this thing gets bumped by the slightest gust of wind. So you gotta keep that in mind. Also, this specific shortcut is always risky to do because you can get target shocked. Damn it, Funky Kong, that was your cue. Okay, I said that was your cue, not that was your blue. God damn it. Okay, I didn't make that. I thought I would, because lightweights get so much air off of ramps that I actually thought I would have maybe been able to make that without a boost. Sometimes you can be surprised about the interactions that happen in this game, it's very funny. Quacker being a bike that specs into mini turbo is also interesting because there are some instances where you don't necessarily want to start a wheelie straight away. You sometimes want to hold onto your drift to be able to charge another one. Thanks, Rosie! And then you can sort of be off to the races. And that's kind of an interesting interaction for a bike. It's maybe not the most intuitive for a lot of bikers because it's very much not how bikes would usually play. I don't know, it's definitely an interesting gameplay dynamic to be sure, and I know a lot of karters tend to enjoy it, which is kind of funny. I think it resonates. I think the long mini turbo resonates with a lot of karters, which is very funny, but it makes sense. You'll love to see it. And that just about wraps it up for the HIM developer commentary. I'd like to thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to check out the previous ones if you haven't already, and the next one, whenever it comes out, the final episode. And until then, that is Ross signing out. Goodbye.